welcome back to RC Everyday. So a new little segment I want to do. If you've been with the channel a while, you know I've started out in the hobby with old 90s Tamiya touring cars. Depends on where you're from, I guess, how you say it. But I've started kind of collecting the old touring cars, the box art bodies and stuff. So I've got a bunch of chassis that I haven't had bodies for. So I've been on eBay, I've been bad. And just looking for parts and pieces. The TA01, TA02 stuff is now hard to find almost 30 years later. And yeah, I've been collecting little bits and pieces, kicking myself for selling the stuff that I had. But episode 1 here of Tamiya Time, I've got this chassis that I've had for a while. It was the Jägermeister Porsche. It's a TA02 that they re-released, and it had all the FRP chassis and everything. Lots of little upgrades. And I wasn't into Lexan at all, so I sold that body off. Never did a thing with it, but I'm not a big fan of those Porsches anyway, so I found a body on eBay, and it was a pretty good deal, and I put it in my cart. I'm like, okay, I'll wait for that, and I'll just watch it, see, maybe it'll go down a little bit. And I guess they just really wanted to sell it. They sent out one of the offers or whatever, for like $20 off, so I think with shipping it was around 80 bucks for this Peugeot 406 body, which is already painted, stickered. It has one little rub mark on it. I'm like, that's not too bad. You know, it looks good. All of mine have a little bit of wear. I don't have any perfect examples. The chassis I have are mint. Some of them have never been driven. But the bodies, they all got a little rash here and there. Because, I mean, it's, like I said, we're 25, 30 years old on this stuff. So I didn't know this came with the original box. This is the body set box if you bought it separately, not with the kit. So yeah, we're going to take a look at this and we're going to mount it up on the TA02, but we have to make some changes to it as well. So again, box is in pretty good shape. This one had a date on it for, where'd it go? I think this was 96 or 97 if I remember right. Oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? 98. Made in Japan. Has the original instruction book, has the extra stickers, and looks fantastic. You see we've got all the stuff in there. So you know, a kid growing up in Texas, I didn't ever know much about European cars. I didn't even know how you pronounced Peugeot until Top Gear years later. And yeah, this thing's beautiful. It's got one rub through the sticker right here, and a little nick there on that sticker, but other than that, it is perfectly mint. And the graphics and stuff on it, they did a fantastic job. Very, very accurate. So I've got a home for this, but let's take a look at that, what we got to modify to make it work. This entire build series on the channel a while back, and it's one of those videos that's kind of done better over time than it did at the beginning. A lot of people are into this stuff, and you know, my channel doesn't look like a place you would go for box art Tamiya stuff, so I take it, I get it. But this was a TA02 short wheelbase, so the arms and stuff are different in the rear, or angled differently, and but it's full FRP. It's got lots of little upgrades. It's got some aluminum hubs. It's got full bearings. It's got a vintage, what was that, neoprene or whatever bumper, or what material that is, urethane. But I did modify that. I had the rusty Clodbuster short bed drift body on this for a while, and I only drove it once or twice, and I've got aluminum motor plate. I've got so much upgrade stuff for these, but I'm not going to do much to this one. It already has a one-way diff. It's got a lightweight shaft. Got FRP towers. Yeah, this is going to be kind of a shelf queen, so I'm not going to do a whole lot to the chassis, but I'll show you what the problem was. See, with the body on, the rear tire set's just a hair too far forward, but the body post holes and everything were perfect already. I mean, you notice the old one, it still has the hole pre-cut for the antenna, and yeah, just an awesome looking body. I loved these touring car races. It was hard to ever find on TV here in the States, but man, those guys, that was some racing. That was impressive to watch. They put these cars through it. They hit the corners and the back tire comes off the ground because they're braking so hard, and they're just banging each other. Last few laps of every one of those races was just intense. But so we've got to change some arms around and do some things on the rear to get this to lengthen just a little bit. So what I did, stock stuff is very hard to find. I have some stock TA02 arms somewhere, but again, I'm still living out of boxes. So I picked up a set of GPMs, These are aluminum. I got black so they don't really stand out because this is more about the body than it is the chassis. And these are a little bit different. You know, they have the C-clips on the rods that hold all the joints on the arms. And they have the little bushings and stuff in it already. So we're going to swap those around. I'm not sure yet what we have to do to the upper control arm to make that clear. I'll show you a closer look. You can see that's kind of curved in to allow room for the shock. So we may have to bring the shock away from the arm. It's going to move the bottom mount, so we're going to have to space the top mount out and do some things. Luckily, I do know where my vintage Tamiya hardware box is, so I've got some things that we can do with those little brass ball screws and things like that to hopefully just space it out enough and allow it to work. I don't have any adjustable uppers for the rear. Those are just hard to find. I know some other stuff will work. I've actually used some M chassis upgrade and hop-up parts on the TA platforms, but I don't have any of that stuff handy, and I haven't been able to find as many of those as I was before either. But I've kind of looked at it and eyeballed it. The arm should be the right length and get everything back where we need it. And again, this kit was pretty much box stock. I think I added the aluminum cups in the front, and I did some camber work in the front just to clear that body that I had. So it's got a little bit more camber than it needs, but other than that, it has universals. Yeah, it has universal shafts all around. It had a lot of nice upgrades. So I'm going to take a look at this. We'll pull one off and see how it's going to modify that upper arm. Alright guys, got the lower arm on. You can see how far back it moved it. It's probably 6 millimeters or so. Ought to be perfect for the wheelbase we're looking for. Of course, with this GPM stuff, they never give you the extra hardware you need. And of course, these little bitty E-clips. Yeah. Second one I tried to put on, whew, gone. Been looking for a little bit. It's lost in the carpet. The carpet in here is very camouflaged, so luckily, I just was down there on the floor digging for it. I had this TA03, which I'm not a big fan of. I've never had one of these growing up, so I think this may become a parts car. It's got those kind of clips on all the suspension, and it has adjustable upper arms. And it's got a few little parts I'm going to steal off of it, and I may part ways with that one. So, at least we've got one. We're going to be one shy for this, and I'm hoping, actually that may be smaller. Oh man. I don't know. We'll find a way. I got my spare parts here. We'll take a look. But I think I am going to steal these upper mounts off of here. They are pink. And why not? You know, have some hop-up parts on this thing. So, we can get back to work. Alright, so that, again, escalated quickly as always. Yeah, lots of issues with the shock fitment. I did end up moving the upper control arm back to the back side. Had to space this side out so it would clear the gearbox. That's the only reason I had moved it forward to begin with. I did have to swap on some aftermarket shocks, and they are making it set a little higher. But I'm not sure yet how I feel about that. We'll have to see how the body sets. But the main issue, the stock shocks. There's no eyelet in there, so moving that ball stud away. I used to have some of these that were longer and you could space away, but it just, yeah, used those on a project apparently, so here we are. So now we have to at least change the front shocks to match. But luckily I picked up a set of those. Those are just some off-brand ones from eBay, and they actually feel really nice. They came with some different springs and stuff for it, but adds a little more color. So yeah, got everything buttoned up on that. I had to space the top shock out with about 4mm spacer. Used some real long screws for the bottom. These control arms, I'm sure they fit the DF01 too. I don't know. It looks like it's made for the shock to mount in the middle of the arm, but none of the shocks I have would fit in there. And then it would interfere with the hub, so that must be for a different platform. I've never had one that mounted in the arm like that I can remember. So now I've got to go through and do the whole thing over again on the other side. Luckily I set my upper adjustables to the same length before I put that one in. And yeah, hopefully we can do this a little bit quicker this go around. So we'll pick up there and start. Alright guys, that took a lot more work. Of course, everything always snowballs. But I do dig it with the new shocks. They are a lot more firm than the old ones, and it feels a lot more stable. Those stock shocks have been setting for a couple years, and they haven't really leaked, but they're just not very firm. They were very leany. This would actually feels like it would be pretty good on the track. So got a little splash of color. Yeah, it took a little while with the FRP shock towers. Finding spacers, you have to, these shocks were a little bit different, so I had to pull the fronts away as well. Use the inner mounts, front and rear, mainly just because of clearance. The rear, they wouldn't clear the bottom of the body post, things like that. I had to kind of hodgepodge and mix and match hardware to find things that would work. Luckily I had another pack of the Hot Racing little spacers, 3mm spacer kits, and got everything jiving right. I forgot that those GPM arms do have shims, so there is a little slop front to back. Honestly, it's better than the stock plastic ones had, but it did have shims, so you can adjust it to fit exactly, and I forgot to put those in. And after losing one of the little E-clips to go on those rods, I put the last one on after I stole it off the TA02, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm never going to drive this thing really anyway, so we'll just rock it like it is. So we can give this beautiful body a home to rest on. I've got it tucking just a little bit. The body is pretty well in line with the bottom of the frame, and not the right wheels, of course. These had some kind of like OZ racing style, lots of spokes. I think they were silver. I haven't been able to find any sets like that yet, so be on the lookout. But I dig it. This thing is awesome body, nicely done. A couple little road rashes, but man, these guys, after watching them race when I was little, they beat the snot out of these cars, and they ended the races looking like that anyway, so I'm pretty happy with it. Didn't spend a whole lot of money. I think the shocks were the most expensive thing I bought. They were probably around 40 bucks shipped. Maybe a little, maybe like 35, but the rear arms I think were like 12 bucks. Nothing real expensive, but it always turns into being a lot more work on these, like it always does, but I'm pretty happy with it. But that's it for this video, guys. I appreciate y'all watching. If you like this Tamiya time or Tamiya talk session type video, we do stuff with these old touring cars, comment below. Got a whole bunch of goodies and a whole bunch of these chassis that could use some upgrades. So anyways, I appreciate you watching. Keep it scale, and I'll see y'all next time.